What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of The Kingdom Says. We've got a very special episode for you today. We are recapping the Chiefs 2024 draft class. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams, and I am joined by a full crew tonight. We've got Kyle Henning on the top right of the screen. How are we doing tonight, Kyle?
Doing good. Ready to talk some ball.
Yeah, we are. Bottom left, we got Arrowhead Tom. How are we doing tonight, Tom?
Good. I am. I'm exhausted after the draft cycle, and just glad that you guys are ready to talk about some 2025 prospects. I think that there's a couple of defensive linemen that Randy and I have been talking about this week that we want to definitely keep an eye on. Oh, Kyle's already gone. We lost him, guys. We lost him 15 seconds in, and he's given up. I don't. Yeah. I'm good. I'm doing good, man. Excited to talk about the draft and everything that's happened.
Yeah. And then also joining us, Randy Ellenberger. How are we doing tonight, Randy?
Doing awesome. I'm right there with Tom. Feeling a little, I'm a little sad that the draft is done, but I'm pretty excited about the haul that we made, especially guys in the undrafted free agents that we signed. That was pretty awesome. But yeah, Tom and we've already started talking 2025, so we're on this train. We're rolling.
Crazy people.
We're rolling.
I will do it again.
We'll do it again. We'll just leave. Me and Kyle will just leave right now. No, we won't. We won't leave because it's a very.
We could BS 40.
I know, but I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing with all my spare time that I was doing mock drafts with.
Randy, listen, this is what you need to be doing. You just need to watch every single snap of Xavier Worthy's film. All right, that's all you got to do.
I don't know what to do with my hands right now.
Just dive into Texas. Just break out the old Texas film and have a good day.
Just start watching some more Worthy film.
Yeah, just all of it. Just watch all of it because he's going to be. I mean, we're going to be eyeing up his bust in a couple years. You know, we got the guy fit the gold jacket. His bust, his Canton bust.
Oh, okay. All right.
You ever heard of that, Tom? You know what that is? That's Hall of Famers. That's what Hall of Famers.
I know you've been eyeing that up for a while, but
you know about the bust? Okay, cool.
I know. I'm a big bust guy. I love big busts.
I know you're a big bust guy, Tom. I know you are.
The player walks in.
Kyle's like, we have derailed already. We just started.
All right. So, anyways, we are here tonight.
There are no rules.
We are here tonight to recap the Chiefs 2024 draft class. Obviously, very much so highlighted by my guy, the guy that I have been clamoring for all offseason on this podcast, and all of you have made a tremendous fun of me for and hated on me tremendously and everything. And it became a reality because the Chiefs drafted Xavier Worthy in the first round. So that was pretty hype. Initial reactions from you guys. I'll tell you what my initial reaction was. I ran around my house screaming. I
wish we could have gotten that on. I wish we could have gotten your genuine initial reaction on video.
Yeah,
that would have been
just
good.
me. Because the whole sequence leading up to it, because the Bills were on the clock at 28, which we're going to talk about here. Because the Bills, what are you doing? So the Bills on the clock at 28, and all of a sudden, I'm frantically refreshing Twitter. Right on draft night, I don't really watch the actual draft. It's just such long drawn out program. So I just refresh Twitter, try to get the picks tweeted by the insiders. Some of them which are fake insiders that don't know what they're talking about, and then there's real insiders that do know what they're talking about. So frantically refreshing, we see that Buffalo is trading the pick, and we're like, who are they trading it to? Is someone going to jump up in front of us and take Xavier Worthy? And then no, they're not. It's the Chiefs. The Chiefs have traded with the Buffalo Bills. Or very, very, very.
I think that might have been the more shocking thing.
That was the most shocking thing of the day. Yeah,
is that no doubt. When I saw that Buffalo was trading the pick, I'm like, son of a, like someone's sneaking up, someone's jumping Buffalo. To get A.D. Mitchell or it's one of the other guys that we're coveting. And all of a sudden, I see they trade with us, and we're like, really?
Yeah.
It didn't work out for him so good the last time they did this. Like the last time they did that, we ended up with Pat, and now you give Pat the fastest guy in the draft.
It's certainly questionable.
I'm still trying to figure out the thought process in Buffalo. Like, how does that happen?
How does that? Yeah, that was the biggest question of the night. So once we see that Buffalo was trading with Kansas City, crazy. All of a sudden, it's full gear. I started shaking because I was like, oh my gosh, like that actually might happen. Like this, I was trying to think of like all the other people, like Johnny Newton was still on the board, and I was like, it could be him, but like
that was a thought I had as well. I was like, pairing Jazon Newton with Chris Jones would have been awesome for the defense.
That would have been great. That would have been great. I'll tell you what. And then refreshing Twitter and seeing the Chiefs pick is Xavier Worthy. I mean, just to say, shouting all around my house.
Ran around my house, screaming and yelling.
Just actually shaking. I was sitting there I was literally shaking as I was like trying to make the draft graphic poster. I was like, there's no way. There's no way that this just happened. There's just no way that this is real life, that the Chiefs actually drafted Xavier Worthy, that everything I've dreamed of has come true. And turns out.
In response to Garrett's everyone has hated on me thing, my response has always been, since he started this thing, I don't think the league will allow him to be there because they just they don't do that. They don't. The league traditionally has not allowed speed wide receivers, and I mean even if they're just pure speed wide receivers, to fall when you run like he ran at the combine and they test like they do at the combine. Traditionally, the league is like, oh, I'm going to trade up 3 picks for that, taking it number 7. Like, nobody did that this year.
Yeah.
They took Bo Nix at 12.
If Al Davis was still alive, he'd be a Raider for sure. There'd be no doubt about
that. Brock Bowers would have fallen a little farther. But, like, legitimately, like, I've said, like, I'm fine with Worthy if he's there, but I just didn't think there was a chance in hell he was going to be there. And then, like you guys talked about the most crazy part. The pick be damned. They could have picked Spencer Rattler at that point when they traded up with Buffalo. I was like, what?
Buffalo, what are you doing?
What is happening? I'm sitting there looking at, here's the teams you had left to trade with. They got to Arizona. Arizona took the pick, and I was like, well, that kind of does it until
there's a big run of NFC teams
there.
You go to
the next. Like until you get to like 29 or 30, because Buffalo's not going to trade with you because that would be Worthy.
They need a wide receiver,
right?
That would be actually insane. After they told Stephon Diggs, you can go anywhere but there, and then they gave the Chiefs the pick that they took a wide receiver. I would also like to point out, while yes, there was a trade made, it was basically just a bunch of pick reshuffles. It was like readjusting your lottery ticket numbers.
It was a pretty interesting deal.
By the time I saw the final value calculation numbers from Spot Track, which is Jason or Over the Cap or Spot Track, whichever one it is, I think it's Jason at OTC. He basically said the value exchanged in that was like the Mr. Irrelevant pick.
Yeah, it's like the last.
Literally, the last pick of the draft was what was
a late 7th. It's like, oh wow, no.
Value traded for it to move up 4 spots. By the way, several trades in the 2nd and 3rd round, far more value was given up to move up in later rounds. Which, if you're the Chiefs, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You moved up when it was cheaper, especially the division. I guess to call it a rivalry, you have to win something when it matters. So, division opponent who's good-ish. Look, if you're the Bills front office,
gotta have some questions of what you guys.
It's a tough sell to the fan base.
It's a tough sell.
Lots of Bills fans. Who were very displeased. And by the way, they then took a very different wide receiver type at 33, which they traded back to after they traded 32 with the Panthers, because the Panthers wanted Leggett at the end of the first.
I had a solid half hour of just sheer enjoyment of watching videos of Buffalo Bills fans.
I went on YouTube after you said that, Randy. I spent like 2 hours.
Twitter and everything else. Yeah. Just watching these guys completely melt down that they traded with us.
That was almost better than the pick itself.
I know.
And then they go through the stages of grief where they start trying to talk themselves into why that was bad or why they talked bad. It's quite funny.
It was crazy. Yep.
Yeah. Tom,
but I tell you what.
Why were you crying into your pillow?
I mean, it's the same reasons, and again, like I've said this, before the draft happened, and I stand by it. Like, I see the positives, but I also see, like, you have an outlier, an elite outlier in terms of speed. You also have an elite outlier in terms of size.
Yeah,
There
he
are
screams
also,
cheap, doesn't he?
and sometimes sometimes that size also like the speed shows up on film, but the size shows up on film. He's tough. Like, I'm not saying he's not a tough kid.
Oh,
And there are things that, like, going back and watching more, I'm like, okay, I can see it. I can see what they're hoping he'll be. It's very boom or bust, and
Yeah, that checks out.
If there's one spot I'd want a boomer bust, that's with Andy Reid. I mean,
I'm just saying,
that's their
for
philosophy
me,
at the wide receiver
personally,
position. For those that seem to be still struggling with that concept, this is what they do at wide receiver.
Yeah.
It either goes really good or really bad. See Rashee Rice.
But I mean, it is safe to say that the Legion of Zoom
and then
is back.
Oh God, it's so fast.
We got 3 guys that run sub 4.3. I mean, holy.
Yeah, and Rashee Rice goes 119 miles per hour. If you haven't seen the Facebook,
that joke was so bad.
That's good meme. That was good.
That joke was funny. That was good. Whoever did that, kudos. That was good stuff.
Look, man, they've got speed to the point where if they keep a couple of the other wide receivers, like in the 5 and 6 hole, they're all sub 4 really fast. That's really hard to cover as a defense. You guys, we all remember what 2018 looked like, and I am not telling you anybody is going to be Cheetah on this roster, but I am telling you a whole group of dudes that are that fast, like that receiving core was nightmarish to cover for defenses.
Yeah, right. I think so. I want to expand on the Xavier Worthy pick a little more in my thoughts, because obviously, like I said, I have been the biggest Xavier Worthy fan ever since really the offseason. I mean, as soon as it was the championship game versus Washington, I think, where it was Texas and Washington. And I was like, I actually asked the question in our group chat, like, who would you guys rather have, like AD Mitchell or Xavier Worthy? Because I'm taking Xavier Worthy all day, and that's where the whole Fashion Nation started with everything. I will just say this, as big of a fan of Xavier Worthy I am, and as good of a player that I think he is, my whole thing was always that this is just the Chiefs pick. Like, this is the type of receiver that the Chiefs want, that Andy Reid wants. I would love to see a big jump ball guy like AD Mitchell in this Chiefs offense with Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball up. Like, that would be a really fun offense to watch. It's just not what the Chiefs do. Like, historically, Andy Reid just doesn't really use bigger wide receivers like that. He's always been a speed guy. Obviously, you had Deshaun Jackson back in the day. You have Tyreek. And now you have Xavier Worthy. And really, the writing was on the wall for a pick like this, because Andy Reid himself told you guys what he wanted in a receiver. After they traded Tyreek Hill away, they didn't have a speed replacement necessarily to fill in that void. So they traded for Kadarius Toney. Like, Kadarius Toney was supposed to be that guy that was the speed option in the offense, that they could do all these crazy exotic motions and screens too, and all this stuff. Like, Kadarius Toney was supposed to be that guy. And obviously, there's still a chance. There's a small chance, but there's still a chance that works out.
You have to hand him the ball, just not throw it to him.
Exactly, yeah. But, like, Andy Reid told you guys what type of receiver that he wants. He wants speed. He wants smaller guys that are more agile, that he can do a lot of crazy stuff with. Like, it's just the writing was on the wall. And when you look at this draft, Xavier Worthy was the best fit for what that is. He's the fastest guy, obviously, and even before he ran at the combine, like, he was obviously one of the fastest receivers in college football, and he just, his whole play style really fit exactly what the Chiefs wanted to do in receivers. So I think the pick is going to be great. I'm a huge Xavier Worthy fan. I will be getting everybody on this podcast Xavier Worthy jerseys, and we will all be wearing them week 1. So that's I said it, and it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. So it's a fun. I'm very happy that he is a Chief now.
I mean, I like the player. I like the skill set. I'm right there with Tom. Tom and I were kind of on the same page there with the pick. It's just, we love the upside, but we see the downside. And I hope, they had conversations about his size after he was drafted. and they mentioned that they would like to see him at 175, 180, fall camp, whatever.
Yeah.
That would be ideal because 165 scares me. 165 is one solid hit from dying in the NFL. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you watch some of the college film,
if he could put on 15 good solid pounds, I'd be much happier seeing him come into camp playing the season at 180 than 165. If it takes him to a 4.26 instead of 4.21, okay, fine.
So be it. Yeah.
So be it. But
I mean, just give him KC barbecue.
You have to add some bulk just to make sure that he can handle the beating he's going to take at the NFL level.
Yeah, just gotta give him some barbecue. He's in KC. He's just gonna use him. They're gonna.
He's got to be good weight, not my weight. Good weight.
You're right. Yeah, I'm very ecstatic about the pick still. If you're watching on YouTube, also you can see a little Xavier Worthy in top right corner. He'll be joining us for this whole episode because he is my guy. And
sorry,
it's actually
sorry about that, guys. I stepped out for a second because my allergies are killing me, and that's not pretty on screen. So
that's all right. That's all right.
That's actually a real life.
Quickly, I agree that with Garrett, he's been the reason Garrett was banging the drum. I agree with completely. He's right. He's the guy the Chiefs will 100% draft 100 times out of 100 if you give him a chance to. Like he makes sense. It just does. And the upside, I get it. And by the way, guys, he's already gained 7 pounds because the Chiefs listed him at 6'1", 172 on the website today, I believe. So,
really? All right.
You grew 2 inches and put on 7 pounds in a week.
Look at him.
Crazy growth.
Awesome.
Somebody test him like they did Ryan Garcia. Oh, wait.
So yeah, the come up is real. Xavier Worthy, happy to have you in Kansas City. He already has a Chiefs tattoo,
which is sweet.
Great. Yeah. Which is pretty. Also funny that he already had an NFL logo tattooed on him.
What I was gonna say, did you see that he was just finishing up the rest of the piece because it was
just had to fill it in. He
had his draft, like the draft, the look there. It was the whole NFL shield with like the whole draft stuff was there, and all you had to do was fill in the team's logo and what pick and what round. That was crazy. Yeah, that thing was nice. Cool.
Yeah, and then it was a big weekend for him. He gets drafted. He turns 20. He turns 21 the next day.
Yeah, legally drink for the first time.
Yeah, now you can finally celebrate, drink some Cristal, and have himself a good time.
Yeah, and then he got sang "Happy Birthday" too by everybody
that was
welcoming.
That's pretty good welcome.
Everybody there, happy birthday! Yeah. Pretty special moment for him for sure.
He's a Chief now. We're rooting for him. That's what matters at the end of the day.
Exactly. So. Enough with Xavier Worthy, who is, like I said, get the jacket ready, the gold jacket ready. We ain't got to worry about it. So
how does he open up? How does he help the offense though? How does he seriously? How do we see him affecting the offense this year? Yes, but there are different levels to burner.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about the offense that the Chiefs' offense severely lacked last year, and it's part of the reason why the Chiefs had to trade for Mecole Hardman, is because they just didn't have a deep speed guy that could open up that portion of the field. Like you're adding a guy who can literally just stretch the field better than anybody else we've had since Tyreek Hill. So that's a huge add. Obviously, last year the Chiefs had a lot of problems kind of in the middle of the field, not being very opened up, especially because they just don't have a deep threat to really worry about. So adding Xavier Worthy, it's going to be a really dynamic add for the offense, I think.
He can at least track a football. That I will give him.
Oh, he can track a football like no other.
One thing he adds as well is he does add some kick return ability. I think what also it might allow is maybe that's Kadarius Toney's spot now. Like maybe that's his key role as a kick returner, punt returner, gadget guy. Doesn't have to worry about being an everyday wide receiver 1, 2.
Punt and kick return are different this year. Those are different things.
Totally understand. Yeah, but there's no denying Kadarius Toney's ability with the ball securely.
Just gotta get it. Yeah, just gotta securely get it in his hands.
So once the ball's in his hands, he can do some crazy things. So I mean, I think we just manufacture a few touches and get him, in the return game. Maybe somehow build his confidence back up to where he can catch a football again. But you pair Worthy with Hollywood now. 2 guys on the outside that can literally take the top off of any defense that's out there. It opens things up
for Travis Kelce. and Rasheed Rice and whatever other receiver underneath.
And they'll eat up the middle more than they had in the past. So having him in Hollywood, that kind of speed on the outside is scary for defensive coordinators. So
yeah, I agree. All right. So now we've talked enough about Xavier Worthy and his awesomeness. Moving on to the Chiefs' second round pick, which very big surprise, mostly because nobody thought he'd even make it to there.
And not believe he was there.
Yeah. That was a big shock. Obviously, our guy Tom was a big fan of this guy the entire draft process, and happened to choose him for mock draft warfare, which is Kingsley Suamataia. That is the correct way to pronounce his name. In case anybody was wondering, we butchered it a couple times. Suamataia. It's Sua and then Mata and then Ia.
Ia, yeah, and you want to make sure you pronounce the Ia. I listened to a whole segment today with Seren had the from 810 had the BYU play-by-play announcer guy on, color guy on.
Oh yeah,
it's Sua Mata Ia, and it's
I saw he had an interview with somebody at I think the Senior Bowl who he himself even really said it. Sua Mata Ia. So a lot of syllables in that name, but it's a great name and a great player. Tom, obviously you've been a huge fan of this guy the entire process, and the Chiefs get him in the second round, at the end of the second round, where nobody predicted. I mean, he was predicted to a lot of places as a first rounder. A lot of people mocked him in the first round to the Chiefs, including Tom. So absolutely tremendous steal to get him in the second.
Yeah, I felt like, and I've shared this leading up to the draft, I felt like he was the kind of that last tier of tackles that you could like realistically start day one, and like he's going to have growing pains. But I feel good about it. I love his upside as a whole. I know BYU tackle, all that, but former 5-star recruit. His athletic profile was insane. His
tremendous. Related to the entire Polynesian NFL, everybody, all of them.
Yeah, he's cousins with Penesul
and
Puka Nakua. I think there's 4 NFL
like
players
5
right
of
now.
them. I watched a clip of him. He listed off like 5 guys.
And then he's got uncles and his grandpa.
Like the whole
blood.
If you're a Polynesian in the NFL, there's
pumping through this guy's veins. Like,
if you're a Polynesian in the NFL, it's a good chance you're related to each other. Yeah,
right.
He's massive, and like you see the arm length, you see the hand size, you see it all on tape, right? He's built in a lab to play tackle, but he moves really well. There's some things he's got. It really comes down to like the nuance for him of being an offensive lineman. It's the placement. It's getting to the spot. It's making sure you've got the right angles when you're pulling outside. It's I don't want to say he has some nasty in him, but sometimes he gets a little more passive than I want him to be. Like, one of the things that I enjoyed learning was like that he's got a very strong boxing background, which you see a lot. Like, in fact, I think some of his footwork stuff is probably because he's, kind of mentally crossing sports there. So hopefully, he gets that kind of cleaned up. But you see him like really go for some of those punches sometimes, but also, there's other times where he's kind of more in that jab. But holy cow, his hands he's got 10 and 5/8 inch hands, which is 85th
frying pan.
Huge.
Yeah, 85th percentile for hands for offensive tackles. Big dude, carries his weight really well. And so the other thing that we didn't mention about Worthy that I think is important, well, we did, turned 21 on Saturday. Kingsley's, I think, only a couple months older. So both these guys are young.
Yeah,
have
January.
Time to, change their frame and grow and develop as players. So that's pretty huge. It is a masterclass that, Brett Veach was able to get him where he got him. Because like I said, myself and several others would have been happy with him in the first round.
Oh, for sure.
So, that was a big moment because it's like, regardless of how it played out, you're walking away with Xavier Worthy and Kingsley Suamataia, yes. In the first round or the first 2 rounds, that's great. And then I said this kind of leading into the draft, like there's kind of this big drop off in round 3, and Brett Veach, with his trade up, like kind of got out of that. There was kind of this weird purgatory of players in like around pick 85-ish to, or I think 75 to 95-ish, and then because like it's not necessarily
mocks. That's why you do the mocks. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't always, but this year it felt like you could pretty much tell where that hole was, because you'd get to the spot in the mock draft and you're sitting at pick 90 of whatever we had, 5 or 6, and you're like, well, this sucks. And it was that way every single time we did a mock. It wasn't like, oh, the first couple that pick stunk, and then the next couple it was the second round pick, and then the next couple it was no. It was every time we went through the scenario, that pick sucked every single time. So he traded out of it.
The Chiefs made it pretty obvious too, because they traded out of it, and then afterwards in the 4th round they didn't even trade back up for anybody. They just let it happen. But getting Kingsley Suamataia in the 2nd round, really huge. And like Tom was saying about the some of like the fundamentals and the technique. I believe it was one of the Chiefs area scouts who came on and did a press conference afterwards, and something that he said really stuck out to me that he had learned from an older scout was that most offensive linemen coming out of college have bad technique. Like it's just that's just what it happens, So really, when you're drafting O-line, you're betting on the size, the measurables, the agility, the athleticism. Everything after that you can fix. You can fix the technique and some of that stuff, especially when the Chiefs have one of the best offensive line coaches in Andy Heck, and also you have Andy Reid, who is a former offensive lineman himself. So
he also has some resources, as we just mentioned. Penei Sewell is not a bad person to be able to kick it with in the offseason and pick up some technique things from. He's already doing, as Tom mentioned, the boxing thing, and I know it's not MMA, it's not any of that stuff, but it's hand-to-hand combat, and it translates. And
absolutely. That's one of the things I absolutely loved about Kingsley more than a lot of these 2nd to 3rd round tackles is that he's got heavy hands, he's got violent hands, he knows how to use them, the placement's good. That's that whole boxing hand-eye coordination. He's able to put his hands in the right place, and that's something I think he does better than nearly any tackle in this draft. He's got amazing hands, he's got great footwork. The only thing I think that's crucial for him to work on is going to be his core strength and just his overall ability just to kind of beef up, get a little stronger to handle some of the big bull rush and the big strong ends that he's not used to seeing at BYU. I mean,
you got to deal with Max Crosby now in the NFL.
Right, so he's got to work on his anchor a little bit against the bull rush. But he's got that Polynesian warrior attitude that I absolutely love. He's got that feisty nastiness that Tom and I talk about all the time. Granted, there's a couple times on film he looks like he may get a little passive. But then he'll snap out of it and he'll bury a guy the next play. So love his ability, love his frame. I think he's just got to get a little bit stronger, and Coach Heck he's gonna tune up that technique, and I think we got a pretty solid left tackle here for a long time.
Yeah, no, I think that he's the future there. Like I genuinely believe in him as a player. There's little things. I think the other thing that stood out just in terms of like, oh, we got to get that fixed is he tends to be a little heavy on his outside. Like guys can kind of work back across his face, which honestly, if you're going to lose, like I'd rather you lose. Like that's a very coachable way because the guy's right in front of you. But he tends to kind of overset, especially against some speed guys where he's kind of leaning.
If he's going to lose towards Joe Tooney is not the worst place to lose.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is like getting him in next to Joe Tooney is going to be like, just like we talk about how, you hope to see wide receivers glued to Patrick Mahomes' hips. If I'm Kingsley, I'd be getting the numbers for some of those guys real quick and just going, hey, where are we going? Where's the best barbecue place?
As much as there is a former Chief, which we do need to briefly talk about, Tamba getting honored at some point.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But as much as the defense has a guy like that in Kansas City, the offense has a couple of guys like that in Kansas City if they so chose. one of the big Wills is still in Kansas City doing things of that nature. I can't remember if it's Shields or Rofe off the top of my head, but
I think it's Shields.
I think it's Shields.
Yeah,
because,
Will Shields is still around. Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
Will and that guy was, last I checked, pretty good at multiple positions across the offensive line.
Maybe one of the best. Yeah.
All-time
So
great
there's
Husker,
that
all-time
there.
great Chief.
The other thing that I would
Husker.
note with Kingsley, and so it's kind of got talked about. You heard it in the interview. It's honor. Yeah, it's honor. I'm honored. It's this and that, but also he has to trust me, and no one's touching him. And it's that protective, that protective nature of like, no, that dude's. And so when you pair all those things together, and you get to be able to, our first 2 picks, I didn't think either one of them would be available where they were taken based on like. I was
not
just
at
like,
all.
yeah, no chance,
Yeah.
no chance. And so yeah, no, I
Absolute
mean,
home runs.
you've probably there's an actual camp battle for us to watch and pay attention to. We actually have something to do at training camp.
Oh yeah.
That Wanye, Kingsley left tackles, I genuinely will be surprised if they bring in another tackle right now.
Yeah, at this
I
point,
don't
it
think
seems
you'll
like the
see
Donovan
it until
Smith talks have cooled a little bit. It doesn't seem like that's
he may come into play, but just not until after they get through like some of the OTAs and some of the other stuff.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
You may
But
be.
that is
I don't want to do a long drive drill in August in St. Joe with Andy. I would rather skip that part, and you guys can call me after that.
You don't want to go to St. Joe and one of the hardest training camps in the NFL?
Not. It doesn't. It's always a good time. Said no
Yeah.
one who's been there as a player ever.
That is a good point, though, that you mentioned about the left tackle, competition that we have, and we talked about it the pre-draft where it's left tackle, it's a need, but it wasn't like maybe the biggest need. Wanye played okay in his limited roles, and obviously there's always room for improvement on it. But like Tom said, Kingsley was kind of one of the last guys on that tier that you could start right away. But luckily, he's in a situation that he doesn't have to necessarily. I think there's a good chance that he probably beats Wanye out for the job. But just in the theoretical world that he doesn't, it's not like it's the worst case scenario. He's got some time to kind of sit there and learn from all those guys and really kind of come back stronger the next year. If Jawan Taylor's contract is cuttable or something like that, or the Chiefs, the Chiefs could be very well looking at 2 tackles of the future with Wanye and Kingsley. They could realistically have 2 guys for the next couple of years with those 2. So should be a fun battle to watch in camp. I would say Kingsley probably has the edge on him right now, but we'll see. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be fun to see the kid grow. And like I said, 21 years old. That's the biggest thing. A lot of these guys we've seen, and we'll talk about some of the other Chiefs draft picks. There's a funny kind of thing with age in this draft class here, but with COVID and all that stuff, there's been a lot of older prospects in the draft. A lot of guys get drafted who are 23, 24 years old. So Kingsley's a young one. He's only 21, just turned 21 in January.
And it's opposite of the last couple of drafts where they've gone older team captain, senior leader, older dudes, older guys in their class.
Yeah, so it should be fun. Should be a good battle to watch. Kingsley Suamataia, welcome to Chiefs Kingdom, wearing number 76, which is very cool. Very nice left tackle number. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. Any final thoughts on Kingsley before we move on? He's a dog. I mean, he is a dog. And this is Tom's guy. And we should say this now. Mock draft warfare, we got to give the title to Tom. We do have to give the title to Tom. He did select Kingsley. Following the trend of mock draft warfare winners, where we always pick the guy in the first round, they get selected in the second round. But Tom was on it. He does get that point and probably the crown for this year's mock draft warfare. I did have a bonus pick for Xavier Worthy, but it wasn't an official pick. So I'll
also hit the stamp his person spectacular.
Yeah, my guy. It was Tom's my guy. Copyright trademark infringement. So yeah, Kingsley Suamataia. If we just keep on saying it enough, I think it'll roll off the tongue better. Suamataia.
Welcome to the kingdom, Kingsley.
Which then takes us into our third pick. which was not in the third round any longer. What pick was it, Garrett? Pick
131.
31 in the fourth round.
Yep.
Okay.
So the Chiefs held pat at like I was talking about. Didn't decide to trade back up for anybody in the late third or early fourth. Even they set for the entire day, and they got a pretty good one. They sat pat and got Jared Wiley, tight end out of TCU.
He's an interesting dude.
He is an interesting prospect, and everybody said he's a great blocker. I think he was underutilized as a pass catcher, but I mean if you just look at him at 6'6", 250 pounds, former high school quarterback, he is so Travis Kelce-esque. His build and his skill set and his history, it is going to be.
He's intriguing for those.
He is super intriguing. I think he's more physical than Travis is. I think he'll be a better, more physical inline blocker. But
anybody remember what Travis's comments on Travis were when he was a prospect coming out of Cincinnati when it came to his play style? Because I do. I remember what he was talked about as.
Yeah, multiple his physicality was talked about a lot.
Yeah, he was a blocking tight end who could progress into a potential receiving threat. He was more nasty than he was a lot of things. It's so funny. That's part of the reason I laugh so hard every time the Gronk narrative gets brought up. Like I'm like you. But remember when he came out and you guys told me all he could do was eat glass and punch people in the face, and then he has 7,000-yard seasons and an eighth one that was like 8 yards short because he chose not to play.
Short,
yeah. Like okay. So we are not. This podcast, I have screamed and banged on tables for people to set proper expectations. We are not setting the expectation that Jared Wiley is Travis Kelce. That would be unfair and not acceptable.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just saying the traits and the history are similar.
I do find it interesting that Randy pointed out something that I completely agree with, and I wanted to make sure we highlight. The usage of him at TCU was, Randy said questioning. I will go with a little bit more. It was flat out baffling at points in time.
Right.
I mean, it's TCU, that's
classic. Hold on. They were in a national title game 2 years ago, and they were running an offense. Like, calm down. The offense wasn't the issue at TCU. It was the defense. They also had
Quentin Johnston, though. So
the offense wasn't the issue at TCU. It was the defense.
That's true. That's why Colorado blew him out. Like
Jared was asked to do a lot of things that I think it was because he was a better blocker than some of the linemen that they had on the team. And I'm not trying to take shots at guys, but like it was rough there at segments for that TCU offensive line at points when they got into games against SEC talented defensive lines. And he was pass blocking like on second and third down. Like they had him pass blocking. And then you go out and you watch that kid run lots and make some and catch the ball, and it's like, wait, why was he blocking on the passing downs again? I'm confused.
Exactly.
It's out of necessity. I mean, if you just look at his stat line, 47 catches for a little over 500 yards.
Yeah.
It's 11 yards a catch, and he had 8 touchdowns. I mean, there is ability there. I just think he was underutilized. And when when you talk about setting realistic expectations, we have Travis, we have Noah Gray, who's been in the offense for a long time, which Noah Gray is like, I love Noah Gray, but he's the Dollar General version of Travis Kelce, and
he's also way lighter and way smaller.
Oh, absolutely. But his pass catching ability is very similar. And then we add Irv Smith, who's kind of an enigma, who has never really kind of lived up to.
That's what we call another one of those former "we loved it" picks. That was
right. Yeah. I mean, it's a buy low. It's a buy low and hope that he pans out and does maybe something. So Wiley's going to come in as tight end 4.
Maybe Irv Smith could get cut in camp. I'm not.
Absolutely, he absolutely could.
Yeah.
But the opportunity to have Travis Kelce and Noah Gray and Jared Wiley in 13 personnel or 31, it's going to be exciting. Like,
yeah,
having those 3 guys out there is like.
What's
do a
wrong
lot
with
of
it,
weird
Tom?
things with that.
Nothing. I was just waiting for a chance. No,
ahead.
So yeah, his usage at TCU was weird. Physically, he looks like he could hold up a block. They didn't have him in line a whole lot, which was weird. I mean, it's college tight end, and he was their best, like, one of their better offensive weapons. He really exploded as a pass catcher after transferring from Texas to TCU, but he is not like, yes, there's some of that background. He is not Travis Kelce, and it's good because there's a lot of things about his game that, like, if he can learn from Travis, like we've seen Noah Gray do, he'll be a more complete player. I said, stylistically, and again, when I say this, expectations, but like reminds me a lot of Zach Ertz, like being a big bodied guy. He doesn't necessarily just like have a lot of straight like acceleration speed, but he, like, once you give him a little bit of a runway, very, very physical. And Travis Kelce is always open just by apparently it's really hard to cover the 6'7" white guy out there that has been doing this for the last decade.
A lot of wiggle.
Yeah, a lot of wiggle. Jared's open in the sense that, like, if you throw him a 50-50 ball, it's going to be more 70-30, right? Like, and he's going to use, long arms and that kind of thing.
He's open in the way that the center posts the guy up in the low block and is open.
And he does that. I mean, that's
positionally
part of his
open.
game is framing guys out and really using the leverage. So if you get that ball, on the other side of him, he's going to stretch out and grab it. So it's a different flavor from what they have in the room, and I'm excited for it. I thought it was a really good value pick for where they were at, and I know some other people who were very high on Wiley.
A lot of people. I seen a couple who had him as either tight end 2 or tight end 3, and most everybody had him at least in the 3rd round. So it's get him in the 4th there.
A big Jared Wiley fan.
Yeah, that's pretty big. It's pretty good addition. So Jared Wiley, welcome to Kansas City. And then 2 picks later, the Chiefs go back to back in the 4th round, and this is probably one of the biggest steals of the draft, just value wise. A guy who many people had as their first rated safety in the draft, if not 2nd or 3rd. Very clear cut day 2 pick in everybody's eyes, and he falls all the way down to pick 133 for the Chiefs, and that is Jaden Hicks, safety out of Washington State. I know he was Dane Brugler's number 1 safety. A lot of people were very high on the kid, and let me tell you, he might be one of the best picks of the draft. Looking back at this, because he is such a fun player to watch. Going back and watching his film, I mean, if you were to just make a concoction of all the Chiefs DBs and put them into one guy, I mean, this is Jaden Hicks. Like, he is going to fit in tremendously well with this DB backfield. He's super physical. He's rangy. He's quick. He's explosive. He's smart. Like, by all accounts, just a tremendous add to the safety room. And getting him in the 4th? Like, are you kidding me, NFL? How do you let this happen?
Yeah, it's like we were kind of talking about pre-show. It's like, when he got drafted, I sat there. I was like, wait,
he's still on the board.
He was still on the board. Like, it was like that.
I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Did they just say
like, wait a minute, he was still available? Like, why did we not take him earlier? Type thing. I mean, 6'1", 215. He's explosive. He's versatile. I mean, him and Shamari Connor. Those two are going to be. They are a Swiss Army knife of little fun things that Spags can do now. I mean, you get Cook back, and we still have Reed, and now you got Connor and you got Hicks. Like, we got some safeties that can do a lot of different things, and they're all big. Well, not necessarily big, but they're good size. They're physical. They're fast. They're athletic. Like, that's 4 safeties on the roster that are do some things.
I think I said in the group chat, like, if you gave me the option of getting hit by Jaden Hicks or getting hit by a truck, I'd probably take the truck. He brings it, man. Yeah. He plays downhill. I was watching some of his work on blitzes and stuff, and he also just plays with a really he's an energy giver, right?
Right.
Somebody who's there to celebrate teammates, always around the ball, always. And there, there's some people a little stiff in the hips, moving side to side, and that kind of thing. And but the Chiefs use their safeties in so many like different ways. I have a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to kind of fit him into whatever role is going to make him look the best. But also he has some very comparable skills to a safety who may be hitting the market next year, contract wise, and so that could I expect him to see snaps as a rookie just because they use so many safeties and rotate, but he could have a really big role going forward for Kansas City.
Yeah, and he's gonna be a special teams Tasmanian devil too. Like
absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
So I know positional value gets discussed a lot in the drafts and whatnot, but generally speaking, selecting the best player at a position doesn't traditionally happen in the 4th round of a draft.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not me positionally rating these guys. Like, that's basically I know the Beast had him way up. Dane had him. It was multiple people across multiple outlets. He was either safety 1 or safety 2, and some places he was safety 1 with a bullet. And they took him in 133rd in the, and I just.
It's crazy how that happens. How does the league let that happen?
Well, it goes to this conversation about scouting and about player evaluation from the league as a whole, and what teams do well and what teams don't do well, and each team is different and so on and so forth. But you have weak spots and you have advantages, and one of the advantages that this team has is their ability to scout secondary and develop it once they get it.
Probably the best in the league at that.
It's another example, and we're going to talk about some other guys that are continuing here in a little bit that weren't even drafted, that are also going to help continue a narrative about his ability, Brett's ability, and the talent and the scouting staff's ability to identify talent on the defensive side of the ball without having to spend crazy premium value picks all the time to get it. Will they if they need to? See George Karlaftis and Trent McDuffie? Yes. But can they also do it better than a lot of people do it at a much later round and clip than most? Also, yes. So
Sneed was a 4th round pick.
Believe he was on the board.
Yeah.
I sent a group message when they drafted him. I was like, did they actually take who I think that said?
Yeah, is there a different Jaden Hicks in this draft that we don't know about? Like,
Tim screws up notifications all the time. I legitimately, when I got the notification thing on my phone from the ESPN app, I was like, y'all probably just messed that up. Like, there's no way that dude was still.
Yeah, it seemed like so. There were some reports about like why he ended up falling that much, and it seemed like a lot of teams were just overthinking it, and just like, oh, he's too versatile. We don't know how to use him. Like, we don't know what role.
We've gone the absolute inverse from what we did the last couple years.
He's too talented. We don't know.
Simmons.
Yeah,
exactly. Right. I think that seems to be a trend where the league just doesn't know exactly what to do with these. It
also just kind of seems like
just because the Ravens took Kyle Hamilton, so they didn't need another one of Kyle Hamilton, so they just let somebody else have him.
It's like the safety is the running back position when it comes to like draft value now on the defense.
Yeah.
Like, it seems to be that afterthought that second guess. We'll get those guys later. They're not that important, but. You look around the NFL defenses and the elite defenses, they got a dog or two at safety.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's usually more than one.
Exactly. So why and how he fell, I don't care. I'm happy it happened. I'm super excited to have him on our roster because like we've said, to get that guy's kind of value in the 4th round is just it shouldn't have happened. I'm glad it did. The rest of the league will pay for their negligence. So
cost-effective, cost-controlled talent. Brett Veach stacking it late rounds. These contracts cost, in the grand scheme of the salary cap, cost nothing.
Yeah.
Like
that. Yeah. So pretty huge addition there.
If you hit these picks, you're basically adding extra dollars to Brett Veach's fund money for when we go. Give Travis Kelce a raise,
after we develop them and they play and they do well, and if we don't sign them, they turn into compensatory picks. So
yeah, that's true.
So
yeah. So a really huge addition for Jaden Hicks there. And like we talked about, like, you know, with the Chiefs lost Mike Edwards this offseason, so there's a little bit of a role there. But just long term, you can develop him into be basically anybody, you know, like he can fill any role. Having him, Shamari Connor, you know, Najee Johnson, Brian Cook, all the guys back there. He gets reunited with his former teammate and Jalen Watson from Washington State. Still got Josh Williams there, obviously. Like the Chiefs are a defensive back factory, and for him to come to DBU basically with the Chiefs and get developed under Dave Merritt, he's going to be a dog. That's not even a little bit of a question that he's going to be a very high level contributor for this team for multiple years. I think that's a pretty fair assessment. So yeah, Jaden Hicks, welcome to Kansas City. Very happy to have you. Moving on. So the Chiefs gonna go.
Kind of nuts that nobody checked you on that when that's a 4th round pick, but we all get it. Like the dude should be a contributor. Like I know it's crazy that we're like, yeah, no, he should pretty much like see. Tom's like, yeah, he should see snaps as a rookie, and we're all like, yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chiefs are known for this. You know, the Chiefs just take late round DBs and make them into stars. You know, like I said, L'Jarius Sneed was a 4th rounder. Josh Williams is a 4th rounder. Jalen Watson and
I know
7th rounders.
Like I said, I want to be specific about setting proper expectations, and yet that one feels right, even though he's a 4th round.
Yeah, if there's one thing we do on this podcast, it's set proper expectations. You know, Xavier Worthy, like I said, get the gold jacket ready. Anyways, 5th round. Moving on to the 5th round, the Chiefs go a little bit of a surprising pick. This
was my first head scratcher of the draft. Yep.
Definitely a little bit of a surpriser, mostly because of some of the other interior offensive linemen who were on the board. The Chiefs to go with Hunter Norzad, interior offensive lineman out of Penn State, a guy who played, very versatile guy. He played a couple positions. He played right tackle in college. He played left guard. He played center. I think he even played right guard. So very versatile guy you get in the 5th round. Like I said, was a little bit of a head scratcher. There was guys like Christian Mahogany and a couple other guys there that, you know, the Chiefs had Mahogany in for a top 30 visit, so you might think they go that way. But Hunter Norzad obviously impressed them very much somewhere along the line in the draft process. This is a very interesting pick to me, mostly because of his age. And like I kind of hinted at when we were talking about Kingsley, you know, COVID, how that affected people is that, you know, guys stayed in college for 6-7 years in some situations.
8, 9 with
like there's some older guys and prospects in this draft. So Hunter Norzad, he is currently 24 years old. By the end of this year, by November, he will turn 25. So as I was kind of hinting at, it's very, very interesting that the Chiefs, 2 offensive linemen in the same draft class, one of them will be 21 by the end of this calendar year, and one of them will be 25. And there's both of them rookies, and both of them in the same draft class. So that's
so. Can I throw some perspective?
Throw some perspective on Tom.
Yeah, because I was with you guys. That was my first pick. Like, meh. Here's the thing. Yes, he's played all over the place. Tackle, he played earlier when he was at a smaller college, but really, at Penn State, he played mostly guard and center, but most of those snaps came at center. So 784 snaps at center last year, no snaps anywhere else. 17 snaps in 2002 at center, and then he played mostly at left guard. So I see this as they needed a center, and he just happens to be like they want their interior guys to be able to be versatile. So if we rewind back to the Super Bowl and even the playoffs, like we've talked before about the Creed Humphrey low snap issue, but that happened. So I hate doing this to just vaguely reference a tweet that I don't remember the source for, but there were kind of some rumblings that like, hey, maybe Duke, Creed is dealing with an injury.
Good. Duke flat out said that he was hurt.
Was that Duke? Okay, yes. That's what I thought, but I didn't want to say it was him without knowing. So
I very much remember. I can go pull the tweet if anybody needs it. Duke was like, his hand was hurt the whole. All right, we
got Duke.
I think in that, especially in the Super Bowl, when Nick Allegretti, who was the backup center and the backup guard, that had been kind of their approach. He was playing guard, and so you can't really pull him to put him in at center. So I think this is a departure from that and saying, hey, we need somebody who can play center. Who's going to be our backup guy. And when you look at it in the context of that, Hunter makes a lot more sense as just as a purely, hey, we need a center pick than we just need an interior offensive line pick.
Well, and a center that and it may be a transition from we've seen them have a guard who's had center experience and can play center, and this may be more of a transition to having a center that
That's right.
can play
Right.
center, and then we can teach you how to play guard, but
sure.
how to play center if we need you to play center.
Yeah,
So
losing Nick Allegretti in free agency was tough because and Allegretti was a center at Illinois as well. So
yes.
It's playing center. They're like, oh, he snapped the ball and then you block. I was like, it's a snap and step at the exact same time. Like it takes
Kelce about that.
It takes a different skill set to be able to handle that. So playing guard, yeah, absolutely. It's still a hard thing to do. Playing center is tougher because you're calling out protections. You're the signal caller on the offensive line. You're kind of that leader. And it is a lot harder to snap and step without losing that snap and that contact with your quarterback and making sure that snap's going in the right direction. So having a guy that's experienced doing that, like Allegretti was, that can step in and snap if he has to, is huge. So as I was saying earlier, that this was the first head scratcher for me in the draft because I, like Garrett mentioned, I was like, Mahogany's still sitting there. I'm like, we need interior offensive line help. But seeing, after doing a little bit more research on this guy and seeing his experience at tackle at Cornell, playing left guard, then playing center, I'm like, okay, this is our Nick Allegretti guy that can snap the ball if he has to, and play both sides of guard. So it's a much better pick now than I thought it was right off the bat. But I think he's gonna do just fine.
And then, can we skip over to our other offense? I know we have a pick in between, but can we talk about the other offensive linemen as well?
Let's jump over. It is relevant to that. So we'll skip the 6th round pick for a second, and we'll go because the Chiefs double dipped, which I don't think anybody had on their bingo cards, but the Chiefs decided to double dip at interior offensive line in this draft. So they chose Hunter Norzad in the 5th, and then in the 7th at pick 248, they went with CJ Hansen, interior offensive lineman out of Holy Cross.
Holy Cross. So, and again,
that's the first Holy Cross draftee in like the past 27 years or something. I saw
he's one of like 3 ever, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
and I fully expected the wide receiver from Holy Cross, Coker, to get drafted.
I really like Jalen. I was just saying, we talked about Coker in the mock draft warfare because I really like the kid. I think he's going to be fun. So if he goes to a place that actually lets him do his thing at the receiver position, so that's
first one since
never mind. Good luck. You're going to be on. I wish you the best, kid. That's not going to end well.
Yeah. So CJ Hansen, guard, played exclusively at right guard in college. So, a guy that could develop, a guy that can be a backup. Is also going to be competition for some of the other guys who've been hanging around on the roster. So not the most exciting pick in the world, but it makes sense when you look at the Chiefs roster and trying to, have some insurance and some familiarity there, especially with the other thing we didn't mention is Creed and Trey are both entering contract years. So, having some guys behind them, even if it's not to say, these guys are going to be the starters, but if there's a changing of the proverbial guard or the literal guard, there's somebody who's been in the building who can,
the literal guard.
Have some camaraderie, do some, player coaching kind of thing. Hey, this is how we do it. This is this protection. This is that. So,
also very interesting note. Hunter Norzad, only 5 months younger than Creed and Trey. Only 5 months younger.
But his contract is 4 years younger.
That's true. But I think Tom does make a good point, and this goes back to the point we made about the Chiefs' kind of offensive line philosophy. Because, like we said, last year Nick Allegretti was the only backup interior offensive line that the Chiefs carried on their initial 53-man. He was the backup left guard, center, and right guard. So
Caliendo was added later.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously it's a little bit of a different approach now, as though they're drafting a guy who's more strictly you can just play at center. And then you also draft another guy who's just more of a guard. He doesn't already have as much versatile experience, but he is just, a starter at or a solid guy at guard you can use for depth. And you don't really got to worry about, versatility is always nice. I also did see, I think it was Mitchell Schwartz, who was tweeting out during the draft, like, versatility is great, but like you really just need to be good at one position. That's what teams really need you to be. It's just good at one position. So
and Hanson's, he's got 37 starts the last 3 seasons at right guard for Holy Cross. Now, I understand Holy Cross is not a football mecca by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, it's an FCS Patriot League, and the Patriot League is not a stalwart in the FCS standings of things. But CJ Hansen, he's got the frame. He's 6'5", just sitting at 300 pounds. He's gonna have to get bigger. He's gonna have to get stronger. But he's got decent hands and he's got decent feet. He's a project. He's gonna be a practice squad guy.
Yeah, probably gonna be tough for him to make the roster, but
he's gonna need some serious development. But he's got experience to start. He's got decent tools to work with, but he came from a smaller FCS program. It's not a football factory over there at Holy Cross. So he's got an uphill climb ahead of him, but he's got some tools to do it, and he's going to have the coach to give him that kind of tool and kind of get him in the right spot. But he's a training camp body and a practice squad guy for now.
Yeah, and also another interesting thing about both of these interior offensive linemen the Chiefs drafted, both of them were big Shrine Bowl guys, I believe. I think both of them went to the Shrine Bowl, the East-West game, and really showed out there. So obviously that did numbers for them in the draft process, getting them a little bit more exposure to some of these teams. So, always good to have more bodies in the interior offensive line, and especially after the Chiefs 2020 season, we all very much welcome added bodies on the O-line. So, welcome to Kansas City, Hunter Norzad and CJ Hansen. And then with the Chiefs, there's technically the Chiefs' second to last draft pick. We're talking about him last year. Pick 211 in the 6th round, Kamal Haddon, cornerback out of Tennessee, which, once again, you add another late round DB to add to the Dave Merritt, Steve Spagnuolo factory. He fits a very similar build as some of the other guys on the team already, which is obviously then they're
a Jalen Watson, a Josh Williams clone when it comes to size. Yeah. Like, other than the number and the name, like if you took those off, you're not gonna be able to tell these guys apart on the field.
Yeah, so obviously the Chiefs have a type in DBs like that you can develop. I think Haddon's had a good amount.
6'2", 197.
Yeah, I believe he has a good amount of college experience, so that's always a big positive. But it's a late round DB. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Obviously, we've seen how these guys work out in the past.
And I think Haddon gets drafted earlier if it wasn't for missing half the season with a shoulder injury. That's
right. Yeah, it
knocked him down because he's got good film. He's got good ability. He's got great size, and he's got decent speed. He's got an eye for the ball. So he's one of those guys that you're like, wow, had he been healthy all season, there's no way you get him in round 6. But we get him in round 6, and we're like, sweet. Like this kid, when he's healthy, has tons of ability. And like he fits that tall, rangy, fast, physical corner that Spags loves, like we have in Josh Williams and Jalen Watson, and even a couple of the undrafted free agents we'll talk about here briefly. It fit that same mold, and you're like, DB room doesn't look like the DB rooms of old. Like we got some dudes that look like football players back there.
Yeah, no more Javier Arenas and his little groin hanging out.
Yeah,
there's a throwback.
They're all within 2 pounds of each other, and within 2 inches of each other. But with Jalen Watson, Josh Williams, and
they're all in that 6'1" to 6'3" range, right around 200 pounds. They're fast, they're rangy. Good football.
Yeah, it's a good strategy so far. So I think it'll be another good addition.
I agree with what Randy said. So hadn't missed time last year and this past season with some injuries. That's going to be the biggest one, but he's not in a position. We don't need him to come in and start day one or anything like that, so they can rehab him. They can get him up to speed. It's a good, another body in the building at that position. You can never have too many.
No. Exactly. So with that, I believe that pretty much concludes our review of the Chiefs 2024 draft class.
Another master class by Mr. Veach.
Yeah, before we move on to undrafted free agents, let's just get quick grades. Everybody grade the Chiefs draft class. I'll start. I'll give it an A+++++. Mostly just because the first 2 picks, I think those are like probably the 2 biggest home run picks of the draft, Xavier Worthy and Kingsley Suamataia. They're going to be tremendous players for us for many, many years to come. If the draft would have stopped there, I would have been happy. I honestly would have been pretty happy if the draft just stopped there. I would have been okay. But luckily, they still add a couple other really versatile and exciting guys. Jaden Hicks is probably the next most exciting one behind those 2. So I'd give it an A+ for sure.
Yeah, it's a solid A for me. I mean, it adds 2 fantastic value guys. Basically get 2 first-round picks. It's still Kingsley being there at 63 still baffles my mind because, like Tom and I were talking in a lot of mocks, like we would have been totally happy with that guy at 32. To get him at 60,
Yep.
Stupid. Jaden Hicks, getting him in the 4th round, it feels like we've done something wrong. Like
he wasn't even on our radar, really.
Something, like we're thieves in the night. But getting that kid, a developmental tight end, 2 O-line prospects that have some talent, and that DB that if he hadn't had gotten hurt halfway through the season would not have been there in round 6. So we got some fantastic value. I think we got 2 studs in the first 2 rounds. It's a solid A for me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go B+.
Dang.
I'm sticking to my the Worthy pick was bad. I mean, I did not mad. I see it, but not mine. And then I think we talked about the interior offensive line picks were both ones that I kind of had to like warm up to, and I definitely think I almost would have rather have grabbed Mahogany, where we grabbed the center and then looked for a center later on. But I understand why they did what they did. But let's say B+. Someone's gotta be
okay.
Low.
That's still passing.
Here.
That's still a passing grade. I got through high school B+, so.
I think the thing that is most important to me about this draft and the last couple of drafts with Brett and this whole deal is identifying the spots. Like we talked about the sweet spots in the draft and the pockets and where they want to be. And his maneuvering of this draft and the last draft to find themselves in the pockets of players where they wanted to be to get the values that we hear everybody talk about and you hear us talk about with positions and players and round associations and all the stuff that goes into all the pre-draft process. They've done a very good job of that this year, probably better than any of the other years. He managed to move up a couple of times without actually losing any picks and basically just adjusting where he was picking in this draft. And to his credit, like I said, or like we talked about a little bit earlier, found the sweet spots where we talked about that 3rd round being like a black hole of just like there's a bunch of people that are like okay for here, but what do we do with that? Well, you get out of that area generally, and he did. They got out. So for all of those things, it leads it to be into the A category for me, but I'm gonna give it an A- because I don't love a little bit of the back end of the draft stuff, but it's stuff that makes sense. I just wish the prospects were more intriguing to me at the back half in a couple of areas.
The only thing I'm still wishing we would have done.
A-.
The only thing I'm still wishing we would have done towards the back end is there was some pretty good interior defensive linemen available late that I think we kind of missed on. Whether it's Chris Boyd from Northern Iowa or Gabe Hall from Baylor, even Leonard Taylor from Miami went undrafted. So there was a couple defensive tackles that
I was going to be mad about the linebacker position, and then they made up for it in the UDFA stuff, which we're going to get to. So
yep. So a couple of those guys, I think that's the only thing I was really missing was a couple of those interior defensive linemen guys that I would have liked. But
I also thought it would have been a lock that the Chiefs draft a running back in like the 6th or 7th round, but just didn't happen. We got some undrafted free agents that are a little kind of filling that void, but. Right. And I think like Kyle mentioned, one big thing value wise versus the consensus board, the Chiefs are basically at the top. Like I don't think there's a single guy the Chiefs reached for, and even like I said, Kingsley tremendous value, Jaden Hicks tremendous value. Like there was nobody that the Chiefs had to reach for, and they just let the good value fall to them and kind of let the board fall how it was. And that was very evident that they didn't make many moves on day 3 because the draft just wasn't as deep in those positions.
And that's usually Brett's moving day.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So that
he's
tells you a
usually
lot.
looking under the furniture for pennies and trying to clean out couch cushions for the extra.
Yes, that tells you a lot about how
I got
how
a
this
7th
draft...
in here somewhere. 8 years from now, we can throw around somewhere.
Exactly. So that's sometimes the draft just isn't as deep. The pieces don't fall exactly how you are, but for what it was, I think they ended up making out pretty good. So another great draft cycle down in the books. Now let's get to a couple undrafted free agents that are of note quickly here. I know we're going a little bit long, but we want to talk about undrafted free agents, and we have some other Chiefs-related news to get to near the end of here. But anyone have a good list of all the undrafted free agents that they want to go through? Kyle, you got that?
I mean, I've got a list.
I think we have some interesting prospects that we ended up with, and some guys that like Kyle was mentioning just a little bit ago, that we were just kind of surprised we didn't get a linebacker late, but we ended up with a dude how he didn't get drafted.
I don't know how he didn't get drafted.
I don't know either. I mean, Curtis Jacobs from Penn State, he's a pretty good freaking linebacker.
He's a pretty good ball player. Yeah, I mean, definitely worthy of being drafted.
For sure. This is not a strong draft class. I think he just, that was a weird one.
It was a weird linebacker class this year. It really was. There wasn't like a ton of dudes that really stood out, like those All-Americans that can just be a wrecking ball on defense. There wasn't a lot of those guys.
Think would make it easier for a guy like him to get drafted, but it really wasn't. It made it harder. Yeah. And it seems odd, but the dude had 171 tackles and 24 for loss. He basically did 9.5 sacks over his career. He played 4 years. He started, I think, 2 of them. He's an athlete. Like he is. His athletic testing was not the problem.
Yeah.
It's a very odd class. There were where some of the linebackers got drafted in this draft. I was paying attention to because I talked about J.D. Bertrand at one point on here, and there were some things that happened with different linebackers throughout this draft that I was like, what is going on in this league when it comes to the linebacker position? Right. But I think that's one where the league is trying to figure out what it wants to do with the linebacker position, and they're not really sure, so you're seeing some different things happen in these drafts with linebackers.
Right.
And I think because of that, they may get a guy that's likely going to find a roster spot at some point. But maybe not this year. He may be a practice squad guy this year. But as they go, there's a real chance he finds his way onto a roster spot.
Oh, for sure.
He's got a lot of athletic ability, and he's got plenty of smarts and football IQ tackle ability. So it'd be surprising to see him not succeed.
Yeah.
So there's a whole list of guys and some that are invited to camp. I think Curtis Jacobs has one of the better chances of making the roster. The other guy that I think has a really strong chance, and another one that was like maybe the most surprised that he didn't get drafted was Fabian Lovett out of Florida State. Yeah. Now he is an older prospect. He is, he's a nose type of player, but he's got an interesting build. But I really thought like there was some
18, 35 and a half.
Yeah,
I mean, he's got that one tech build. I just think the age and a little bit of some injury history is kind of pushed him out. But still, I think absolutely should have been drafted for 100%. Another guy that surprises me is Miles Battle. He is a 6'3" rangy corner with some ball skills that I'm like
sounds familiar.
From a kid from Utah who played
fast.
Yeah, he's fast. He's tall. He's got great range. He's got good ball skills.
Another guy that will look exactly like the other guys we mentioned.
Exactly.
In the cornerback
exactly. We have a type outside of Trent McDuffie of 6'1" to 6'3" corners that can run and jump. So,
and will be physical because Utah, their corners, the way that defense played, they'll punch you in the face at the line of scrimmage if you give them the opportunity to do it. And it's just another guy. Garrett, do you have one? Because I have another one.
Yeah, there's a couple other notable guys. And one guy that kind of stuck out to me that was kind of interesting was Reggie Brown, who was a wide receiver out of James Madison.
Mr. 20-yard a catch average.
Yeah. So I mean, he had 1,000 receiving yards his final year with James. I mean, it's James Madison, so it's not like it's a huge thing, but it's like still it's a guy with a lot of college production.
A K is a K. I don't care where you do it at. That's
he was a Blitnikoff Award finalist, so that's good. That's a good sign. That's one of the best receiver awards in college football. So you're having a guy with a lot of experience, a lot of play time. So it gets you another. Probably not going to make the roster, but probably a pretty good lock for the practice squad. Yeah.
So there's a name that I pray to God you just don't look at his athletic testing numbers. Just watch the tape. Just watch the film first.
Yeah,
you can look at his athletic testing numbers, just not until after you watch the film. Because if you watch the film after you look at his athletic testing numbers, you will not believe that is the same person, for one. Be like, I need to see video of the athletic testing because there's no way. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, he's talking about Imani Bailey,
by the way,
running back
absolutely horrendously. So Imani is another guy on that TCU offense that I watched him. You watch him play, and you're like, oh no, I can see how that could translate. I wonder what he runs like. And then you go look at the testing numbers, and you're like, oh my God, what happened? It makes no sense. I don't know what happened during his testing. I would be genuinely curious for somebody to ask him, like, were you hurt? Did you not get enough sleep? Did somebody steal your shoes?
I was like Orlando Brown Jr. level of testing,
It wasn't good.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, when you watch him play, and I think there's like miles per hour clocks of him in 20s.
Yeah, game speed is different than testing speed.
Sure
it is, and that's the other thing. But it is, but generally, when you hit 20 something miles an hour, you don't run something that resembles an offensive lineman's 40 time. It's just not what happens traditionally speaking. Like
when
a
watching
fast guard and him have closer than I would like 40 time discrepancies.
Watching Imani
but
Bailey,
like I said, watch him.
He kind of reminds me of like a poor man's Audric Estime this year. He's got,
I like him because we didn't get that opportunity because he got drafted.
5'11", 200 plus pounds, not overly explosive or long speed fast, but he hits the hole. He's shifty. He's got some moves. He's a little bit versatile. They were very, very similar to me in play style. Now, obviously, Estime is a better prospect. But I think that's kind of if you're trying to figure out kind of what Imani Bailey plays like, that's that kind of style. It's that kind of
I'm gonna keep my comparison a little bit closer to home, because he reminds me. I'm pulling up athletic testing right now because I'm like, oh yeah, those are like identical. Very similar to old friend Spencer Ware. Almost identical.
That I get. He's got that vibe.
See that, yeah.
He's a little
Spencer
bit smaller,
played faster than he tested too.
Yeah, both ran 4.6s. I don't have the 20-yard split for Bailey, but similar 10-yard splits.
Wasn't good. Tell you a secret. It was in the red category. I know it wasn't good.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's he's a fun one. Could end up being a practice squad, get a couple call ups, that kind of thing. So he's a fun one to watch.
So a couple other guys I'll run through here real quick that are of somewhat more of note. Ethan Driscoll, offensive lineman out of Marshall. He's 6'8". So
6'8".
So there you go.
Depending on who you believe.
Yeah, he's
I think
big,
6'8" or
big tall dude.
330, which is like ridiculous.
Huge mammoth of a man. So that's always fun. That's always fun to see. Let's see. Anyone else notable? I gotta shout out my guy.
Hunter Battle, maybe. Hunter Battle this year in camp.
Yeah.
Hunter Battle.
BYU
going to have a punter.
Yeah, Ryan Recco, punter out of BYU. Add some competition with Matt Ariza. Hashtag not my punt god. the Mormon punt god is here. The Mormon punt god is here to take that job. Also, Christian Roland Wallace, DB out of USC, got to shout him out because
I wonder why Garrett had to shout him out. I
USC.
cannot imagine.
It is notable that they gave him a 150K signing bonus, so they obviously liked him a lot. He's probably a guy that's going to make the practice squad.
Defense.
Yeah, and it's for the same reason I'm going to give Zach.
Alex Grinch's vaunted USC defense with
don't
all
worry
of those
about the
guys
USC
that didn't
defense,
give up
all right?
7,000 yards.
Roland Wallace is a dog. All right,
I gotta give my Bison a shout out. You know, Zach Mathis, a 6'7" wide receiver from NDSU.
Yep.
And he runs really fast, according to
he's fast and he's tall. Had some concentration drops, but you know, NDSU wide receivers aren't really asked to do a lot because it's, you know, we run the ball at NDSU, so we
really, but, you know, cold, guys.
Yeah. They play in a dome. It's all good. It's all good, but you know, he had 46 catches for 665 and 6 touchdowns. But he's fun. It's fun to see a 6'7" wide receiver out there.
Yeah, that's always fun. Let's see, a couple of notable ones. Spencer Sanders, quarterback out of Ole Miss. Just, you know, just quarterback added to next Chris Ludicune or something. You know,
and he got his fullback in Carson Steele's UCLA.
Yeah, he's got a pet. He's got a pet alligator named Crocky.
That's crazy, and I love it. And
that's pretty cool. Yeah, Carson.
Why wouldn't a fullback have a pet gator?
Isn't he left it back when he got it? Didn't he get it at JUCO or whatever, and then he had to leave it somewhere? I read the story or heard the story.
I hope he makes the roster just based on that alone.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That's pretty sick. Even though he went to UCLA, it's pretty fun player.
Keep the boys' fingers and toes away from Crocky's mouth, shall we?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
I guess the only other notable one I can see is Baylor Cupp, tight end out of Texas Tech. Why is that notable? Because he went to Texas Tech.
And he's a tight end, so he's got a little bit of potential help in both
roles.
Make friends with Travis. You went to Texas Tech. You might
make friends with Pat Mahomes.
Garrett Jeter role.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you can be back behind the scenes of.
No hate to Garrick. Shout out Garrick. Garrick made it to. I know Garrick made it into some video clips on the Monday Night Raw appearance next to Trey and Creed and Patrick.
That was funny. I like.
Should have had Kingsley there. Like I think one of us mentioned, but should have had Kingsley there and get him to get
the young talent over.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it would have worked well with the bloodline being who the bloodline is in the WWE. And I believe there was a bloodline reference made by Kingsley about all of his family that's in the NFL.
He's a team with Yeet. We need Kingsley and Yeet.
You know, but also, if you didn't see that clip, the guy that they stand up and look at is listed on the WWE roster site at like 6'8" or 6'9" or something like that. Something pretty crazy.
Might be generous.
He is listed at like
it's a little big, kind of like how
WWE, they always list people
on Chiefs website right now. So in the similar fashion, he might be about 6'6", but he's still, 6'6".
Big guy, Braun Strowman, big guy. Yeah, he's a monster
probably
among men.
3 bills on some helpful products potentially, and when Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey stand up, you get a really good idea of just how big NFL offensive linemen are, because it's like.
Listen, for
Braun Strowman, it looks huge next to normal sized people, and then those two stood up, and it was like, okay.
I'm just gonna say this. For shoot, Creed and Trey would absolutely destroy Braun Strowman for shoot. They would absolutely put that man in a blender.
Trey is a very bad man.
Trey is a bad man.
I believe somebody, I don't remember which one of our friends on social said it, but Trey Smith is one of the guys on the roster who is like least on the list of people I would ever pick to get into a disagreement with. He's probably near the top of my list.
Right.
Yeah.
He already chooses to show off willingly that he doesn't mind / somewhat enjoys making people feel some extra pain when not necessarily necessary. I don't want to know what he does when he actually wants to do some damage. I'm good. I'm out. I'm okay.
Yep. So with that basically concludes the Chiefs undrafted free agent class, the entire draft class. Will be very fun to see all the camp battles and whatnot going in the next couple of months. So yeah, we have. Do we want to hit on a couple more things, or should we send us out?
We got two touch pieces of news that we can get out. It shouldn't be anything too crazy.
2 quick things. So first of all, Travis Kelce agreed to a new, not an extension, but a new revised 2-year contract with the Chiefs. Essentially, just a big pay raise for Travis. Locks him in securely for the next 2 years, gets him a nice little pay bump. Obviously, Travis Kelce, his entire time here, he has been very team friendly with his contracts. That's definitely not been anything he's shied away from. He's talked about it very openly that he is very cool with having a little bit team friendlier of contracts. That means staying with the Chiefs and Pat and win Super Bowls and all that good stuff. So good to see the Chiefs give him some more money, give him a little bit of a pay raise these next couple of years.
It makes him the highest paid tight end, and it sets the tight end market, which he talked about on the New Heights episode with Jason. It allows the other tight ends that come next to have a new marker to, hey, you got a top. So that was important.
Yeah.
He also said very explicitly on there, I'm not a holdout guy, so I'm glad they went ahead and felt like doing this because I wasn't going to hold out for it, which tells you where he's at on that side of things. It's just a very I wish it would have the reporting on everything would have been a little smoother and less
confusing.
Yeah, it initially came out as a 2-year extension, but then no, it's just a 2-year revised deal. Gives him a pay raise.
It's fine. I'm good with the 2-year pay raise. It's okay.
But it would have been great if it was an extension.
I just would have preferred him willing to be saying right now he's ready to play till 38. Right now he's only ready to play till 36.
Which I mean that's
still
fair.
okay.
Fair.
It's still fine. We'll see where we're at in 2 years.
Right. So yeah, good to see him get a pay bump. Obviously he also has a lot of off the field endeavors, all the commercials that he's in and whatnot. That he definitely makes up a lot.
He just recorded
new game show.
Something to check out. So that's all good. And the other thing I wanted to bring up and make sure we talked about, which I talked about a little bit earlier, was the Tamba getting honored thing. He's going to be inducted into Tamba Hawley's going to be inducted into the Ring of Honor, I believe, was announced earlier.
Much deserved.
This week or last week.
Much deserved. Yeah,
he's doing tremendous work with the defensive ends of today's Kansas City Chiefs also.
I think he's been
not hating on any position coaches for the Chiefs. I'm not saying that they're not doing their jobs too. We can talk about the position coach that I have questions about, which we've discussed previously.
I think
we have plenty of time in other episodes.
The jump that Karlaftis made last year, I think is hugely because of his work with Tamba. And it made me even happier to see that FAU was working with Tamba as well this year. I think that was the huge
reason alone
for FAU is that he was so inconsistent with his hand placement and his pass rush attack. Like he wasn't quite sure what to do after that first pass rush attempt failed. Like you got to have a plan B. You got to have that second move. And I think working with Tamba is going to be huge for FAU, just like it was for Karlaftis.
Even if he was about 85 to 90% of the player that he was on the field, what he's done since leaving the field for the organization and what he's willing to do for the team, and he's a great ambassador for the team. Like I big love to Tamba. I'm super happy he's getting what he deserves and getting his number in the ring.
One of my all-time favorite Chiefs for sure.
Yeah, one of the most underrated players too of his generation. Like he played in the era where there was a lot of other obviously really good defensive ends, Julius Peppers, J.J. Watt, all these different guys. But
he was always the biggest, never the fastest, never the strongest.
And he played out of position for a long time too. He was a defensive end. He played at outside linebacker when we made that transition. Then he came back down. So.
Oh God!
Yeah, tremendous player.
Please
one of the
don't
greatest.
Remind me about the transitioning defenses from that.
Yeah, we ain't got to worry about that. Tremendously talented player. One of the best technicians in NFL history as far as defensive ends. Like Kyle said,
hands.
Was never the biggest or strongest or fastest.
He outworks you every day.
Has 91 and a half sacks. I think is career second most in Chiefs history.
Not going to outwork Tamba Hawley. You're not going to find somebody to do that.
Tremendous honor. Really happy to see Tamba inducted and get the recognition that he deserves. With that being said, there's also one more thing. Just a little thing, but Kansas side of Kansas City had a proposal with some renderings of a new Chiefs stadium and complex, which looked awesome. And that's basically all there is at this point. I don't think it's going to get put to a vote or anything until next January. I heard or something.
It's a shiny new looking pipe dream, is what it is right now.
It is really shiny.
It could be turning into a reality sooner than we think, but
I think it's probably going to be a reality eventually. Yeah, I think it will.
Look, at the end of the day, the whole stance on this has been from the beginning. if you didn't want to open the door, there was a very easy option. If you
Yep.
wanted to open the door and potentially leave all options on the table, you can do the other thing. They did the other thing. This is where we're at now. It was never going to get cheaper. It was only going to get more expensive. And now it has. And look, it is what it is, but the star bond conversation and the special legislations, you guys can we'll save the breath of all that for the legals and the radio talk show hosts.
Yeah,
And the
that will be
legal
a topic eventually. But I'm saying this is
at the end of the
pretty
day,
shiny.
you had an option to keep this all wrapped up under a bow, and instead, now it's an open bidding war. And when you do that, things are changing drastically. So that said, I hope everybody loves and enjoys Arrowhead to 2031. And I don't know where we're gonna be after that, and it's gonna get interesting. So strap in or don't, whichever you prefer. But it's gonna be a fun ride, I'll tell you that.
Yep. So with that being said,
put a helmet on and play the game.
Exactly. Yeah, we will still be Chiefs fans regardless. We will not be switching up.
Well, some folks said they won't, but it's an interesting time.
Yeah, but you know, wherever they're playing, Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City, Kansas, we know that the Chiefs are going to be having a great time, especially because we now have Xavier Worthy on our team. So basically just lock in the next 5-10 Super Bowls. Don't even got to worry about that. Fit the gold jacket, all that good stuff. Yeah. So with all that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in and listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate you guys' support throughout this entire offseason, following us with all of our draft content and all that stuff. It's been a very fun offseason, I think, covering all these guys and covering the draft. And now it's finally time for real football to kind of happen. I know Chiefs minicamp should be happening in a couple weeks, rookie minicamp, and then training camp will only be a month or two away.
They already had the first camp. They had Patrick Camp in Texas.
Did have Patrick Camp. Yep, Patrick Camp is always
good. And me and Tom, we're going to be talking 2025 prospects. So it's
we're
already on it.
No,
we've turned the page.
One did do phase one. I was tongue in cheek with the Patrick Camp. They did do phase one.
They did do phase one. And now there's a new one in town. Xavier Worthy.
Sound like, from what I understood a little bit from Travis on the podcast, that maybe your 4th round tight end was
Mr. Wiley was in attendance
at Patrick Camp.
I mean, that's a good place to be at, Patrick Camp. I'll tell you that.
Like a draft pick may have been last year, and like
we saw him do that a couple times last year with all those guys. Yeah,
kind of weird how that works. Maybe
we
should start trying to
circumvent.
I didn't see a roster of guys for this year's Patrick Camp like we saw last year. Because remember, last year a whole bunch of names and prospects and people's names and stuff popped out. This year was a lot more hush-hush, and I just wonder if the Chiefs may have had anything to do about it.
Don't spoil a good thing.
Hey, boys and girls, maybe we should not share all of the cards with the class.
Yep. So it's going to be a fun year. The Chiefs are set up for the three-peat. And
everybody got paid. Everybody's happy.
Everybody's paid. Everybody's happy. All is good in Chiefs Kingdom. And we are very good. We very much appreciate you all guys tuning in, watching us. Be sure to follow us at Kingdom Says Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Check us out on YouTube, The Kingdom Says, and Spotify, Apple Music, wherever else you get your podcasts at. And we will see you guys a little bit later. We might take a little bit of a break here as in this, kind of a little bit of a dead time before more real news happens. But, the draft process has been a grind. So we might take a little bit of a breather here before we get back to it. But, there's always something to talk about in Chiefs Kingdom. So we will always be here for you guys. So with that being said, thank you all once again, tuning in, listening, and we will see you guys on the next episode of the Kingdom Says.